Right now, President Cyril Ramaphosa will reply the two-day heated State of the Nation address debate later today. Opposition parties criticized Ramaphosa's address and government's response to the country's deepening issues, which include the power crisis, failed SOEs and crime. Some of the MPs urged Ramaphosa not to appoint a Minister of Electricity as it will add to the already bloated cabinet. Let's unpack more of this. I'm joined by a political analyst from UNISA, Professor Dirk Kotze. Thank you very much, Prof, for your time here on eNCA. No doubt with this particular debate that electioneering for next year's general elections was taking place, right?
Yes, that is indeed so. I think the majority of the discussion was actually dominated by that. All the political parties went directly against President Ramaphosa, tried to present him as someone who did not perform well since he became president, actually, not only the last 5 years. And also that what he's doing is not producing the very substantial results. So it is very much within the context of how they want to present themselves, but it was in a sense very much aimed at the ANC. Obviously government also, but very much at the ANC as political party. And therefore all the plans, all the presentations that President Ramaphosa made in the speech, especially with respect to the energy, the state of disaster, a new Minister of Electricity, all of that, they tried to undermine by saying, well, it's either not going to make a difference, or it will be a duplication, or it's unknown how it's going to function, for example, the state of disaster.
So now, in terms of what happened, particularly on day one of the debate, we heard MPs in the form of your Minister of Police, Dirk Kotze, as well as the leader of the opposition, the EFF in particular, Julius Malema, just accusing each other of things that we were never even a part of, meetings that lasted 47 minutes at his home, etc., with the Secretary General of the EFF, etc. What do you make of that South Africans are being dragged into personal issues that we were not a part of?
Yes, well, that is, I think it is in order to create the impression or to create sympathy for the EFF on the one hand, to say, well, there's plans to assassinate the Secretary General of the EFF, that there was also accusations, especially made by the EFF, that very senior persons in the police are cooperating in that they are part of this plot or this plans for the assassination. And that in all of that is obviously aimed at trying to, first of all, undermine the trust that must exist or that should exist in senior members of government, but at the same time that they present them as victims. And that is something which sometimes works. It creates sympathy. If you are seen as a victim of a political plot, of a political strategy against you, and that can then later on be used as an excuse if they are not doing very well in an election. Because they will say, well, the dice was loaded against us. We didn't have a chance because we had to fear for our lives and for our existence, and therefore we couldn't campaign as we would like to. In this case, especially the EFF in KwaZulu-Natal, because this is very much focused on KwaZulu-Natal. And for example, in the 2019 election, the EFF did relatively well in KwaZulu-Natal. They picked up about 8% of the votes, but they didn't continue with it in 2021 with the local government elections. So I think that, and this was supposed to be the growing province for them, the emerging province for the EFF, but it came more or less to a standstill. And I think they need to have an explanation for that.
Yeah.
And that is why they use these theories or presentations.
Just very quickly, Prof, it will be up to the president then to explain further to South Africans at 2 o'clock today why he's appointing this Minister of Electricity and not just make it about the crisis, because obviously MPs are raising very, very valid points about a cabinet that is already too big.
Yes, that is so. And I think what we possibly can see, because he did it in the past, is actually present almost a second SONA speech, which will look very similar, and it is not just a response to the questions, but that they actually present a supplementary SONA speech in which he can explain some of these issues. for example, about the appointment of the minister, the state of disaster, and other key elements of it, about the plan for energy. But also one aspect which he didn't touch on at all, really, in his original speech, is local government. And that deserves a lot of attention. So I think he might develop that or expand on that much more in this afternoon speech.
All right, Prof, thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. Thank